What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Las Vegas Raiders and their 2021 season preview, including record predictions. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, it's Mike here. Over 93% of you who view our show each and every day are not subscribed to the channel. If you could hit that red subscribe button, it would help us out tremendously, and it is completely free for you guys. If you want to stay up to date with our daily content, then click that bell icon and you will be notified every time we go live. Nick and I both really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and we can't wait to keep making more daily content for you. All right, Nick, as we continue the series, we are almost done with the AFC West and talking about the Las Vegas Raiders. I figured I'd do it now and not do it every pick that I have. So let's take a look at the Raiders and take a look at some of their additions that they made this offseason, starting off with defensive end Yannick Ngakoue, defensive tackle Solomon Thomas, Kenyan Drake at the running back position, John Brown, wide receiver, Quinton Jefferson at defensive tackle, Nick Martin, the center, Willie Sneed at wide receiver, and then their draft picks, Alex Leatherwood and Trevon Moehrig. Which one of these additions do you believe will make the biggest impact for the Raiders going forward?
I'm going to take Yannick Ngakoue. When you look at the defensive ends they have, it was Cleveland Ferrell and Max Crosby last season, and now when you add Yannick Ngakoue to this, he's not just a leader, he's also Mauler as a defensive end, and I think that his skill set's really going to work well with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's really going to help these young guys mature, and he's going to take some of that workload off. These guys struggled with injuries over the last few years, and I think now that with more depth to this position, the defensive ends can be rotated in and out, they can stay healthy and fresh, and they're going to be able to get to the quarterback more and more often. I really like the signing of Yannick Ngakoue.
Absolutely. And, I think that the whole defensive front really got stronger, with Quinton Jefferson, Solomon Thomas. So I like that a lot. But I want to take a look at the wide receiver position, because when you had Henry Ruggs, who didn't have an offseason, really didn't show up. And when people think of him as a terrible receiver, like he was an absolute bust. Well, he wasn't. He was historically average for a rookie receiver, believe it or not. In fact, when you take a look at the rookie class of last year for wide receivers, they were historically phenomenal. They were one of the best, if not the best, rookie wide receiver class of all time. So when we're comparing him to the Justin Jeffersons of the world, yeah, he looked bad. But that's not who he was. There was no offseason. Every player is different, the whole gambit. So you have Henry Ruggs, you have Bryan Edwards. Those are really good wide receivers. Then you add John Brown from the Buffalo Bills. Then you add Willie Sneed from the Baltimore Ravens. Now this wide receiving core is starting to get a little scary, because you are built on size and speed. And I believe that the Raiders have exactly what Al Davis used to build his teams on, essentially. Mark Davis, his son, is building his team the same way. Speed, height, everything. They are going to be faster and stronger than every other football team, and they're just going to beat you based on pure athleticism. So the additions of John Brown, Willie Sneed really get me going. I think that this is going to be a huge addition for the Raiders moving forward. But as we always say, with additions come some losses. Got to go over those losses as well. Let's take a look at some of them, starting off with Takk McKinley at the defensive end position, linebacker Raekwon McMillan, running back Devontae Booker, wide receiver Nelson Agholor, safety Erik Harris, tackle Trent Brown, guard Gabe Jackson, center Rodney Hudson, and Tyrell Williams at the wide receiver position. Nick, out of these losses, which do you think will have the biggest impact on the Raiders going forward?
Well, as good of a signing as John Brown was, to me, he's still not going to live up to the big hole that Nelson Agholor is going to leave behind. Nelson Agholor really came into his own last season as a Las Vegas Raider and was that over-the-top weapon they thought Henry Ruggs was going to be. It turns out Nelson Agholor was able to revitalize his career with Derek Carr, and he was a huge asset to them last year. I think that John Brown's not going to be the same guy. He's an older player. clear that Nelson Agholor, he doesn't have the same speed and he has an injury history. To me, that's going to hurt them a little bit in that aspect, and they're going to miss the over the top speed that Nelson Agholor has to offer.
Yeah, Nelson Agholor, definitely a big loss for them, but I think the biggest loss comes by the biggest men, and that is the entire offensive line. I mean, essentially, right? You're talking about Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hudson, Trent Brown, the largest human on planet Earth. Change my mind. I honestly believe that the loss of these guys is really going to hurt the Raiders, at least for this year, because they have not come up with an apt plan to replace them. Alex Leatherwood, fine. He's a really good prospect. He's a little rough around the edges, especially in the passing game. But I think he's good all around. You're talking about a former Pro Bowler in Trent Brown, former Pro Bowler in Rodney Hudson, former Pro Bowler in Gabe Jackson. Those guys don't just grow on trees, and they got nothing for them. I mean, really, absolutely nothing. A couple draft picks to be named later, essentially from Seattle and from Arizona. But outside of that, there's a whole hell of a lot of nothing. So I look at the Raiders as really needing to focus on this offensive line. You are missing some key pieces, and I understand that you have Colton Miller and you still have Richie Incognito, and those are going to be the guys that you're predicating this offensive line around. But at the end of the day, I think that these losses are just going to be a little too much for what they were able to do on the offensive line as replenishment is concerned. All right, let's take a look at their schedule and get to their season preview for the 2021 NFL season. All right, taking a look at the schedule for the Las Vegas Raiders. We start off with week 1 hosting the Baltimore Ravens. This is a very tough matchup, primetime matchup. The first Monday Night Football game of the year. Baltimore coming to the Death Star in Las Vegas. Normally, I would say that the Ravens have the upper edge here, but when you have the Raider faithful, those Raiders fans are not to be messed with. They haven't seen their team in over a year. And now coming into the Death Star, the first time in the stadium, I think this place is going to be rocking. Las Vegas might need to be on an alert for an earthquake for how loud this place is going to be. I think the Raiders, just through sheer energy of the crowd, take this in a very close victory and beat out the Ravens week 1.
A very big win in week 1, and they're hoping to carry that momentum over into week 2 as they go to Pittsburgh facing the Steelers, and they have a tall task with this offense that has not only all these wide receivers, but now you add Najee Harris to the mix. This is a very explosive offense that can do a lot of different things, and I think Big Ben's looking to turn his bad luck around. It comes down to these defenses, and when you look at the Raiders defense and you look at the Steelers defense, Steelers lost some pieces and the Raiders really gained some pieces, especially through the draft. I think that the Raiders defense is going to be able to get a couple stops against Najee Harris and these wide receivers, and the Raiders are going to be able to pull out another big win in week 2.
That starts the Raiders 2-0 on the season, and look out because this might be the Raiders' year, but week 3 does not get easier as the Miami Dolphins come into town, and the Dolphins, fresh off of an offseason where they acquired Jalen Waddle from the draft, Will Fuller coming over from the Houston Texans, a whole revamped offense. Brian Flores has this team locked, loaded, and ready to go. I believe that the Dolphins are one of those teams that are on the fringe of making a playoff spot, and I believe that this is one of those games where they have to really prove themselves. I believe that the Dolphins will just be a little too much for Yannick Ngakoue and the Raiders defense to handle. Look for the Dolphins to come out on top in week 3.
Moving into week 4, the Raiders are back on the road, and this time they're in Los Angeles facing their division rival, the Los Angeles Chargers. This is going to be a very good game, as all divisional matchups are, and this is going to be a different matchup than they've seen in the past, as the Chargers are a much better team than they were. The Chargers' offensive line is much improved. It's going to be hard for all these defensive ends that the Raiders have to get past them and get sacks on Justin Herbert. I think that this rushing attack for the Chargers is going to be a lot for the Raiders' defensive tackles to handle, even with the addition of Solomon Thomas. The Chargers' offense is going to be a little too explosive, and I have the Chargers taking week 4 at home against the Raiders.
Absolutely, and that comes on their second Monday Night Football game of the year already, so a lot of primetime coverage for the Raiders so far. But then in week 5, they take on the Chicago Bears, and the Chicago Bears, they're in a little lull here, right? Because Is it Andy Dalton? Is it Justin Fields? Who do we have at quarterback? It's really tough to tell at this point, but I do believe that the Bears defense is going to absolutely swarm this Raiders offense, and I believe that they're going to be able to really damage what the Raiders do most efficiently, and that's pass the ball, keep time of possession. I think that they're going to make this Raiders defense work a lot, and I believe that the Bears actually come out on top in week 5.
After starting the season out strong against two big opponents, the Raiders seem to have dropped a few games to some unlikely teams. And moving into week 6, they want to correct those issues as they take on another division rival, the Denver Broncos, in what should be a good matchup, as the Denver Broncos are in a quarterback situation that no one knows who's going to be. Is it Teddy? Is it Drew Lock? At the end of the day, is it going to matter? Absolutely not, as these defensive ends for the Raiders are really going to hit home. The offensive line for the Broncos is nowhere near strong enough to stop these guys, and I think the two big safeties, Trevon Moehrig and Jonathan Abram, are going to really play a big part in stopping Noah Fant and the running backs that the Denver Broncos have to offer. Raiders take week 6.
And in week 7, the Philadelphia Eagles come to visit the Death Star for the first time. And the Eagles, they are just not the same Eagles team that won the Super Bowl just a few years ago. They have lost many, many key pieces. And I just believe that they are in full rebuild at this point. This offensive line has been decimated. You still have Lane Johnson. You still have Brandon Brooks and Jason Kelsey. But the left side of this offensive line, the most important side in my mind, is really in shambles. And I believe that moving forward, the Eagles have a lot of work to do. Look for the Raiders to get an easy victory going into their bye week.
In week 8, the Las Vegas Raiders have their bye week, and they're looking to keep the momentum going into week 9 as they head to MetLife Stadium in New Jersey facing the Giants in what's going to be a very good matchup. A high-powered offense for the Giants and a very improved defense for the Las Vegas Raiders should be a very good matchup to watch. At the end of the day, do the Raiders have the secondary to stop these weapons that the Giants have put together? I don't think so. It's going to be a lot to handle. I think the safeties will handle the tight ends very well. I don't think the Raiders have the corners to stop Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, and company. It's going to be too much for them to handle. I don't think the Raiders have the offense going for them in this one. Giants will take a big win in week 9.
All right, sitting at 4-4, the Raiders are sitting at 500, and kind of like the Chargers at this point, they need to make a decision. What type of team are they going to be? Only the issue is now they have the Chiefs coming into town. Their division rival, the Chiefs, one of the most explosive teams in the NFL, maybe all time, coming into the Death Star for the first time. Look for Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill to have big days here. I think that the Chiefs come out on top in week 10.
Moving into week 11, the Cincinnati Bengals make their way to the Death Star facing the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is going to be a very good matchup for the Raiders as the offensive line for the Bengals is improved, but definitely not enough for this edge rush attack. To me, the Raiders are really going to pounce on Joe Burrow. They're going to make his life miserable. And these wide receivers won't even have a chance as Yannick Ngakoue, Max Crosby, and Cleveland Farrell are going to be in that backfield so fast Joe Burrow won't know what hit him. The Raiders are going to have a big win in week 11.
And then in week 12, the Raiders take a short week game against the Dallas Cowboys. This is two premier franchises, the Raiders, the Cowboys, something that most NFL fans just want to see because of how prolific these franchises have been over the course of their existence. And I think this is a battle for the ages. You have the offensive explosion on both sides of the coin here. I believe that the Dallas Cowboys, however, will come out on top. I think that they have everything going for them. The Raiders on a short week having to travel, it's never good for the opposing team. Look for the Cowboys to win in week 12.
Moving into week 13, the Las Vegas Raiders face yet another NFC East opponent in the Washington football team, this time at home, and it's going to be coming down to the defenses, in my opinion. When you look at the offenses for both teams, they're very similar. They both have average wide receivers, and the running game is fairly similar as well. I think when you look at these defenses, however, they both have very strong edge attacks, but when you look at the linebackers and you look at the secondary, that's where Washington definitely has the clear advantage here. Washington is going to get a close one in week 13.
All right, then in week 14, the Raiders go to Arrowhead Stadium to take on the Chiefs, who they lost to back in week 10. And the Raiders are looking for some sort of vengeance here, but it's not going to come. The Chiefs basically do not lose in Arrowhead Stadium. That place is too loud, too hopping to even think straight, let alone play a football game. So I believe that the Chiefs are going to be ready for this one, and they're going to absolutely dominate the Raiders in Week 14.
After going 5-5 and then losing three straight, moving into week 15, the Raiders definitely need to try to turn things around, but they're in Cleveland, and this is not the same Cleveland Browns team. I can keep talking about this edge rush, but when you look at the two pillars that the Browns have on the offensive line, Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin, these guys are nearly as good as it gets, and I think that they're going to hold up very well to this pass rush. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are really going to work well against the interior of this defensive line, and I think Baker Mayfield is really going to have a better game than Derek Carr in Week 15. The Raiders have a fourth loss on the road this time to the Cleveland Browns.
All right, locking in what is a losing season. The Raiders still have to fight because this is all about pride. This is all about saving some jobs here. And the Raiders have a lot to play for here. And I believe that moving forward, the Raiders have to show what kind of team they are. And the inaugural season of the Death Star did not go as planned last year with COVID-19. Now the inaugural season with fans has not gone the way that they wanted to because of the way the schedule has laid out for them. Week 16, they host the division rival Denver Broncos, who they went into Denver and beat. I believe they're going to take out their frustrations in this game. They're going to have an absolute onslaught on the offensive side of the ball and look for the Raiders to absolutely demolish the Broncos in Week 16.
They may not have a winning season, but that doesn't mean they won't make the playoffs, and they got to keep their hopes alive as they face the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. This is a big matchup for them, and their season is riding on a big win here. When you look at the offensive line, the Colts definitely still have an Anthony Costanza-sized hole, even though they signed Eric Fisher. He's definitely not going to be fully healthy after coming back from that Achilles injury, and I think this is where the edge rush again shows up for the Raiders. They're going to have a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz plays very poorly with a lot of pressure on him, and I think the Raiders secondary is going to take advantage of those errant throws from Carson Wentz. Raiders get a massive win in Week 17.
All right, sitting at 7-9, the Chargers come into the Death Star for what is the final matchup of the season in the regular season, and the Chargers, they have done a lot of things on their offense to improve. They've done a lot of things on their defense to improve. Is it enough to come up victorious against the Raiders? No, it's not, unfortunately. And the Raiders, they're going to come out on top, and they're going to once again showcase their talents. They're here to put Josh Jacobs on notice, put Henry Ruggs on notice. These guys are going to really just spark this offense to score some points. The defense headed by Jonathan Abram that you talked about earlier, that defensive line that's really going to push this Chargers team around. I think that the Raiders have a really good matchup with the Chargers. I think it'll be a close game, but in Week 18, the Raiders do come out on top.
With a record of 8-9, that's a very close record to making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. And this is a very similar situation they were in last year, where they just missed the playoffs as well. This is going to come down to the wire and how other teams play out. You'll have to stay tuned for the rest of the series to see who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. But as it stands right now, the Raiders don't make the playoffs, and I think that the Raiders are still very similar to where they were last season. I don't think they've really improved too much. Overhauling that offensive line was great, and I think it was a definite improvement, but as we look at the schedule, it's going to take some time for them to really hone in on their chemistry, for these wide receivers to get used to how Derek Carr's throwing them the ball, and I think they still need to add some weapons on both sides of the ball as well. They're getting there, but it's a slow rebuild.
Absolutely. The Raiders are one of those teams that they have a lot of questions that they have to answer. Is Derek Carr really the quarterback that they want for the future? Is everything working in the front office with Mike Mayock? Is John Gruden really the coach that you want to move forward with? What needs to be fixed on this offensive line that we discussed earlier? What needs to be fixed on the defense as far as the back end is concerned? They have some questions that they have to fix. And, we didn't really touch much on Darren Waller because, listen, he's going to be an absolute stud. We know all of that already, so not much more to say than what we already know. But the Raiders, they're in a good spot. It just happens that they're playing some very, very tough teams. That they have to face the Chiefs twice. That is never a good sign. The Browns are much improved this year. The Dolphins much improved this year. The Chargers in their division much improved this year. So I think that's going to hurt them a little bit, but no, not to fret, Raiders fans, because you're on the right track. It's just a bad year to see your team go up against some of the best teams in the league. But that'll be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.